what's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Writer's Block. My name is Noah Black, and I'll be your host today. And this whole podcast is put together by Creative Corner Company, and so be sure to keep up and subscribe with the YouTube channel, and you can find tons of resources and fun things within the creative and entertainment space over at creativecornercompany.com. And just to dive into this episode, the guest we have on today, I'm personally excited about a lot. She is an incredibly multi-talented, all over the place. She's got a resume that's as long as the Declaration of Independence. She's a singer, songwriter, producer, dancer. I mean, the list could go on and on. We'll dive into so much of it, but her most recent release of the deluxe edition of her incredible EP, 999, which we'll dive more into later, is such a great project, fusing different elements of pop, R&B with just such like fierce and confident songwriting it'll inspire any listener. And so without further ado, man, help me welcome the amazing Kim Bythewood to the podcast.
Thank you. And you know what's cool? You said my last name right.
Yes. Good. I didn't ask you before, so but yeah, that's awesome.
No, that makes me so happy. I get a lot of like Bythewoods.
Yeah.
Sometimes people add the L in there, and I'm like, where'd you invent the L?
Yeah. Where'd it come from?
Yeah. So
But
thank you.
yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you taking the time to come and hang out and just chat for a little bit. There's a ton that I'd love to pick your brain on. And I know for me, a lot of times doing episodes with people, it's a lot of fun. And
Mhm.
you like to, get people on, they get to talk about their stuff too. And so that's a lot of fun and learning about songwriting and the creative processes. But there's a lot personally that I know from my journey in the creative field that there's a lot of like, there's similar things that you do, but also there's so much extra that you do. There's so much hustle that you put into what you do. And so I'm just like, I want to pick your brain on a lot of stuff. And so I appreciate you taking the time to chat.
And I'm excited too because you're also a songwriter and you do music as well. So you'll come from a place that's very informed and, you know, just like you'll have that passion and
Yeah, yeah,
excitement. Yeah.
for sure. For sure.
'Cause we share that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's fun. It's fun to acknowledge that stuff with people who will get it. And so
Mhm.
for sure.
Yeah.
So just to kind of let's go ahead and backtrack and let's, kind of talk about the beginnings of where you are, the whole, your entire just list of things that you're into and within the creative side of things, music, dancing, all that kind of stuff. Kind of where did all of that creative passion kind of begin? What did it start with? And then kind of how has it led up to where you are now?
Oh my goodness. I was a very creative kid. My mom like put me in dance classes because I just had the wiggles all the time. And I was just very drawn to it. I loved singing all the time. I had this godmother who would make fun of me because whenever I went into the bathroom, I would always like sing in the bathroom. So I was singing all the time. Ask anybody like that I grew up with, they'll be like,
Mhm.
yeah, she never shut up. But I also really wanted to be an actress as a kid, but acting like wasn't really like a program that was available in my school that I went to growing up.
Right.
So I just kind of did it like on the side, but it was mostly like dance growing up. I grew up a competitive dancer
Yeah.
and then went to college for dance. And while I was in college, my freshman year, I was like, you know what? Like, I really enjoy singing, but for, a long period of my life, I grew very scared to sing in front of other people. It
Mm,
just gave me a lot of anxiety, and I felt like I had no power over my voice.
right.
And in 2019, like my freshman year, like I was just like, screw it. Like, actually, it was probably 2018, but I was like, let's just do this.
Yeah.
And I got a ukulele my dad gave me, and I learned the song Come Through by Jeremy Zucker, if you're familiar with him.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I posted a cover on my YouTube channel.
Mhm.
And I was just like, I don't think I told many people about it, but it
Yeah.
got quite a viewing.
Uh-huh.
And so I was like, I was very shocked. By the amount of people who watched it and commented on it. And I had someone that I went to college with, like in rehearsal one day, say, like, Kim, I didn't know you sang. Like, this is really good. And I was just so surprised.
Mm.
Um, because I didn't think I was that good. My self-confidence was like that through the gutter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then in 2020, I was like, let's do some singing lessons. And that's when I started recording myself.
Yeah.
That was quite a process to learn on my own.
Yeah.
That was really fun to
Yeah.
learn during COVID, figuring out recording and like cutting my own vocals together in Logic. And I collaborated with a lot of people because I didn't know how to produce yet. I would
Yeah.
just reach out and I'd be like, hey, let me top line on your song, except I didn't know what the term top lining was. So like, yeah, that's what I was doing. And
Yeah.
I've just been kind of doing that ever since. I still dance. Probably not as much as I used to like in college because we were dancing many, many hours a week. I would not
Yeah.
have the same time
Yeah.
now to be doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I just love being creative. I don't think it's something I'll ever stop doing.
Yeah.
I think it's just like always been a natural instinct of mine. Like no matter what I'm doing in life, like I'm just gonna always be creating
Yeah.
something. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's
No,
me.
that's awesome. That's awesome. And it it's definitely a big thing that you know, talking about stuff with dancing, things like that. It's I never fully, you know, appreciated the kind of work ethic that something like dancing builds until
Oh,
I
yeah.
started dating my wife who did dance all through growing up, and it's like
hmm
the level of discipline you have to have in mastering different things and the amount of, you know, different things it teaches you. And I think there's a lot of that that I see, you know, from a distance in your creative processes and everything. Cause I know for you, very similar for whenever I first started writing and recording my own music in 2020, 2021 is how you do a lot of things very DIY. Like it's very, you know, I'm gonna produce
hmm
it and I'm gonna record the vocals and I'm gonna mix it
hmm
and all that kind of stuff. And the level of I know you know well enough, like that's a lot of work to be able
hmm
to do it. And I know for me in my experience, it was very, very similar because for me it was I didn't have any money. Like I was broke.
Yeah.
Like I
Same.
couldn't afford it. And so it's like, okay, I'm gonna YouTube, I get done recording all these different parts. How do I mix guitar into a mix? How do I
hmm
master? And so just kind of learning all those things, you know, it builds from that self-discipline. And so for you, has that, you know, has that helped, would you agree, in building your work ethic, and how kind of how is your experiences with all those things being involved with each step of the process in, you know, creating music or whatever it may be?
Oh yeah, I would say that dance is probably what's the word? Like genre that I have the most training in.
Hmm.
And so I've noticed about myself when I approach other things like music and acting, like I have a bit of like a dancer brain
Yeah.
attached to it, like the way that I learn dance and like you said, very DIY. It's like a mental game, as well as like a physicality game. So
Yeah.
I completely agree. Dance, I think especially like growing up in dance, you really have to work for what you want because there's a million of us trying to
Yeah.
make it. Even, well, in competitions in that world, there's this thing called dance conventions, and they have like choreographers that are really famous and well achieved, like come and you're dancing all day in this like hotel ballroom and you're learning combinations, you're like stretching every class in every single style. And in those rooms, you're with like 100 other dancers.
Yeah.
And like I remember just trying to find a way to like stick out
Yeah.
and get noticed. And so, when I was a kid, like I was not the kid that was immediately noticed in those like conventions, and I really had to like work and figure out what is catching their eyes
Right.
to like get to be seen. And by my senior year, like I was being seen, and that was like a huge like unlocking
Yeah.
brain like achievement sort of moment. um just like in auditions, like figuring out like how do you make these people like you but also stay
Yeah.
true to who you are and show who you
Right.
are. So I would definitely say the work ethic has definitely transferred into
Yeah.
being an independent musician. Because I mean, we're fighting for our lives every day on social media,
Yeah.
trying to get noticed. It's that same room, except it's all digital, you're not seeing the people around you.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't actually, you are seeing the people around you. And it's hard not to compare sometimes too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the wonderful thing about dance is I learned that you can really learn from the people around you.
Yeah.
So I would say that you can do the same thing
Yeah.
as an independent musician too.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's a big factor to remember you do see the people around you who may be achieving certain things that you would like to achieve. And sometimes it is difficult to be like, gosh, why not me? Like, yeah, I'm trying my
Hmm.
hardest and stuff. And a lot of times it's such a good reminder of setting those goals for yourself to try and achieve bigger things, but also at the same time, not making somebody else's highlight reel the like expectation of like this particular artist, fill in the blank of somebody that inspires you or somebody that's kind of close to where you are, of
Hmm.
like, rather than setting it as I think that they're just always success, success, success after another, when a lot of times it's a lot of try this thing and it messes up, or try this thing and it doesn't work until they finally hit the right thing. And so rather than just thinking that all these people are just so lucky, continuing to work hard and getting into those spaces to where you are trying new things, you are trying to achieve goals and stuff like that, to where inevitably, growth is not always this big steep incline. It's this like
Hmm.
small gradual thing. And somebody like me that's wildly impatient, that gets annoying sometimes. but
No, I get it.
but
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely interesting experience. And so for you, along this journey, right? So from, in the music space, beginning, I guess you would say 2020, 2021 ish for you. What would have been a lot of the people who has inspired your journey in that, whether it's somebody personally in your life or even the, kind of the people you look up to within the music space or other artists or things like that?
Hmm. I would say my biggest influence growing up was Ariana Grande. Was a huge fan of hers.
Hmm.
When she was on Victorious. And I loved her. I loved her YouTube channel. I loved just everything about her. And she was so confident with her voice because, she has an incredible voice. And it was something I always wanted. Um, and my best friend growing up, her name's Monet. She is also an incredible singer. So we would sing together on the playground a lot. And she, Monet, she as a person really helped me come out of my shell,
Hmm.
especially when it came to singing. And she was beautiful singer, still is. And she was always trying to get me like, come on, Kim, let's sing this together. Everyone else around us is gonna love it.
Yeah.
um, but as for my musical influences, definitely, I actually have them like up on my wall right here. I have these like postcards from a store I got in Brooklyn. Um, I have Kaylani. I love her. She just came out with a new album.
That's good too.
Oh, she's a beautiful singer and
Yeah.
beautiful person. Ariana, Lady Gaga is a huge one.
Hmm.
She's so fabulous. I'm obsessed with her. Beyoncé is a huge one too. I
Hmm.
saw her back in August and I actually got to work her show. Well,
Oh,
not work
wow.
her show, but so what I do for a job is I'm a stagehand. And if you don't know what a
Hmm.
stagehand is, it's the people who build concerts and do the audio, lighting, scenery, everything
Yeah.
for the production. So I was one of the people that helped take down her stage after. So that was like huge moment for me.
That's cool.
I'm like this close to Beyonce.
Hmm.
So I love her. And another huge big influence of mine is John Bellion, who sometimes people are aware of him, sometimes they're not. But I would say if you're not aware of him, yes, you are,
Yeah.
because he's a huge songwriter
Yeah.
and
He's
he's
amazing.
written, yes, so many famous songs. So when people say, I don't know who is. I'm like, yeah, you do. He's written this song and I know you've heard it on the
Yeah.
radio. And so I love him. He's fantastic. And please, John Bellion, come back. Write an
Yeah.
album for us,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah. Yeah,
'Cause
that he's one that inspires a lot of the stylistic kind of stuff that I do. He's been a huge influence, but also one of the things I am excited about is he did tease in an interview a few weeks ago that he is going to be coming out with new stuff. So that's very exciting. But
Wait, seriously? How did
yeah,
I not see this?
yeah, I'll have to send you a link once we're done with this because
Oh, please.
it's exciting. But and he talks about the like good, bad, and ugly of like
Hmm.
record labels and stuff. It's
I
such a good
saw
interview.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did see that.
But yeah, so but that being said, it's funny that you did mention that Ariana Grande is a big influence of yours. Is there's so many things about the like practicals of seeing through your social, the amount of work you put in, that has very much reminded me of her with like seeing your stuff because of I love the way that people talk about because there is this huge like almost like wall with like women in music of like people won't let women go past a certain point. And Ariana Grande,
Hmm.
I remember a few years back was talking about before she had put out, it was like album after album after album really, really fast of how she was like, I just want to put out music like the guys are doing and people
Hmm.
just won't let me. And she finally had like the capability of doing that because I mean,
Yeah.
people in music, I mean, some of the biggest names talk about how she is like one of the hardest working people, like is producing stuff whenever she's like having to wait on people. She's like producing her own stuff, is
Hmm.
mix like she does the whole nine. And so there's definitely a lot of parts about that when I look at, your socials and keep up with what you're doing that very much are kind of reminiscent of what she does. And so I think that that's
Hmm.
really, really cool seeing that and hearing that influence of her, kind of over your life too.
No, I agree. I do remember her talking about that, how she was explaining how women have to have like eras with their album rollouts and
Right.
always constantly evolving. Actually, maybe that was Taylor Swift that was talking about that. Where you like have to constantly quote unquote be evolving and like having a new like switch, change the game with
Yeah.
every album. And um yeah, she's just saying, I just want to drop it. Like, I don't want to have to do the whole rollout
Yeah.
business. And I think she's now coming to a place where she's happy with some of the like parts of the rollout. Um, like I think the interview process like gives her
Yeah.
more joy now because she like has people that she loves to interview with. And
Yeah.
so I did see her talk recently about that.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot from her, like you were saying, comping her own vocals. And I used to listen to her acapellas on YouTube to figure out like how she was layering her
Yeah.
music.
Hmm.
Because the way you layer your harmonies and you like vocally construct your song can bring a lot to the story too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I was always listening to that and trying to figure it out. And I would like look in those videos and be like, what gear is she using?
Hmm.
How is she doing this? Um, and there's pages that are dedicated to like, this is so kind of weird, but there's pages that will like look at her Instagram and like they can tell you where to buy like every single thing like in the photo.
Oh my gosh.
So weird. But I would thank them when they did the gear
Oh,
because
100%. Yeah.
before I knew what the gear was, I would be like, what is it that she's using? I need to
Yep.
know.
Yep.
Always top grade, super expensive stuff.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like instead of a typical like $250 interface, it's like a
The Apollo.
16,000. It's a,
Yeah.
something
She
crazy.
she uses an Apollo for her
Oh wow.
interface.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. For
I
sure.
want one.
Let me and you both. But
Yeah.
yeah, so and I wanted to specifically acknowledge that to you too, kind of the side of like being a woman in this industry too. There is definitely like there's an extra like there for any person wanting to make it in music and make it whether it's a career, they want to just use it as a hobby or
Mhm.
additional income, or you want to be a superstar, no matter where people are. There is this sense of like you really got to work hard no matter what because it is such a like saturated market now with the internet and
Mhm.
things, but especially for women in music too, there's a lot. It's almost like there's an extra step that kind of has to come with that. And has there been anything for you of like added pressure that you've seen in your career or just seeing through other women's career too, that is just kind of like, hey, this is a hurdle I've got to, jump over, as well as what we can do as a culture within music of like breaking down that barrier to where it's not such a like additional hurdle for women trying to make it in music.
Hmm. Oh yeah, I would say what that is, at least for me, this is what that feels like, is you can't be mediocre. At least like you are not allowed to be
Hmm.
when
Yeah.
like you have to be exceptional and an expert in every single area, or
Hmm.
else you're not a quote unquote good enough artist.
Right. Yeah.
And as a person, you can just be like, I don't care. I don't have to listen to you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's something that really does kind of, it comes into play a lot.
Yeah.
I work in the music industry and that comes up all the time.
Yeah.
And even not doing necessarily artistry stuff, but on the audio and lighting side, if you're not an expert person and if you're not like super freaking amazing at what you do, and people are just blown away by you every single day, then it's kind of like you're not good at what you do.
Mm.
And I see like men who aren't bad but just mediocre just getting away with it.
Yeah.
And I just think, and I'm like, dang, if I did that, I wouldn't get away with
Right.
it.
Yeah.
If I acted the way that you did, I wouldn't get away with it
Yeah.
in this field. So that's what I think that pressure really is.
Hmm.
If you're not a woman and it like you aren't writing all of your songs, if you're not producing all of your beats, and if you're not like, if you don't know everything about behind the camera, like that sort
Yeah.
of thing, then you're not like an intelligent, well-trained artist or whatever.
Right.
Um, that's really frustrating, especially because I feel like to be an expert at a lot of those things, it requires a lot of money and
Yeah.
training. And so it's a little bit elitist too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's definitely something that I have noticed and experienced. But one thing about me is I'm going to prove them wrong if they doubt me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, oh, Noah, are you there?
Yeah.
Did I lose you?
Did it cut out for a second?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
I
There
didn't
go.
notice that. I was like, ah,
No, you're good. You're good.
yeah. What I was going to say was if there's one thing about me, it's that if you doubt me, I'm going to prove you wrong. And that's that dancer mindset is like, maybe my time isn't now, but just
Right.
let me cook, let them cook. And I will pull through and you'll be blown away. You'll
Yeah.
see it. And yeah, because I've
Yeah.
had people say, like, they were like, can you prove me wrong?
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even if like who cares? Because
Yeah.
I feel like you really have to know yourself.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what I love about the women in this industry is they learn that pretty quickly. Like you have to know yourself.
Yeah.
And if somebody doubts you, you just like can say, here's an Ariana thing. Thank you, next. Move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And that's definitely a big thing too. Like in any person's part of the journey, being able to recognize for stuff like that of people are gonna fall short and not like hit the mark all the time in whatever type of business side of things that you're in. Regardless if you are a man or woman, but some of those expectations that are put on women too, it's like, hey, people need to navigate and get experience in everything too. You mentioned
Hmm.
like getting, a lot of time it takes training that costs a lot of money, or it takes this and it costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
And a lot of times there's so much experience that you need to learn in the process too. And being able to get a lot of those opportunities, it ends up being, beneficial in the long run to be able to learn too. And so, and I think you make some really, really great points too. I think it's a big mindset that it's all a big thing that we're all trying to get better in and we're all trying to progress in. And I think especially, for me, seeing people in the music scene just from where I'm at, trying to break down those borders between the fact that, you're a woman and I'm a guy, there shouldn't be like a level of mediocrity that like, oh, I can just coast and get by, but you have to
Hmm.
do this in order to, even get some sort of traction. It's like, hey, let's let's both work our tails off and do a great job at what we're doing, and then it'll make an impact. And so I think that that's such a good point.
Yeah, I mean, well, for me in my industry, it just made me feel like I wasn't allowed to have an off day. Like I wasn't allowed to make a
Right.
mistake. Because if I
Yeah.
made a mistake, it was a big deal. Like I was gonna get really criticized for it. And
Yeah.
every mistake made me feel like, oh, I'm bad at this. Yeah, it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah.
But not to say that like the men who are quote unquote coasting by like aren't talented at what they do and they
For
don't
sure. Yeah.
deserve to be there. It's just like I was saying, like it's just like there's some stuff where I would just be like, if I did the same thing, I couldn't get away with it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah. For
it's
sure. For sure.
okay. I will say though, in good news, the statistics of women in music are rising. I have seen that in 2023, the amount of women that are songwriters in the industry has increased, and producers are increasing
Yeah.
too.
That's dope.
So that's good news. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So we can always celebrate the small wins.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. That's so sick. And so for you in your career so far up to this point, we talked about, there is some challenges and there's other challenges that just go into your personal life as well that I'm sure you've experienced. But what have been some of those kind of highlights up to this point too that have kind of really stuck out, whether it be with songwriting itself or releasing or whatever it may be in the in between, or even in, your job setting too? What have been some of those highlights?
My highlights. Ooh. In my job setting, those are going to be different than my songwriting highlights. Um, but
For sure.
songwriting wise, I think releasing my first song was a huge win for me because dang, so much goes into releasing something and finishing a project.
Yeah.
Um, and I can say the same for my EP too. I had been working on that EP 999 for years, and it was a struggle to get that thing finished.
Right.
And when I finally released it, because I genuinely at one point in time thought I was never going to be able to finish it. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm wondering if I should just scrap it because it was just like so long. And I almost like felt like disconnected with the project
Mm,
a little bit.
right.
But towards like when I did finally release it, I did feel more of a connection to it. I was able to bring myself back and feel that connection again.
Yeah.
So releasing that was a huge win for me. That was last year.
Hmm.
And it had been on my New Year's resolution list for so long. And then filming and releasing my first music video was really exciting too. That was
Yeah, it's
for
dope.
Ladies First.
Hmm.
And I got to have all of my friends be in it, and I have no regrets with that music video. Like it was so
Yeah.
exciting
That's a cool music video.
having. Thank you. Yeah, that was all my close buddies, a couple of childhood friends in there, like people I've been friends with since I was like 6.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm so happy they're in that. And other wins, I got to perform at my college my junior year. That was really exciting. There was a lot of people
Hmm.
that turned out to that show. And immediately after I performed in that show, I had to run to our theater on campus and stage manage a dance show that night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I performed and I was like, "Thank you guys," and immediately ran
Vaulted.
to the theater and stage managed a show that night. And that was a win for me too. I was like, if every day could be as busy and as exciting as this, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
I was like, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Um, as for wins as a stagehand and as a technician, I think working Anastasia on Broadway, the tour
Mm,
last year. Was it last year? Yes, it was last year. Um, that was exciting because I love Anastasia.
hmm
And Beyonce was a huge highlight. Um, Bruno Mars was a fun show that I worked. That was like I can never stop thinking about that. Um, and now getting my job at Blue Man Group, that's a huge win for me.
That's awesome.
I have a lot of fun doing that production. I'm a
Hmm
lighting technician there.
Oh, that's dope.
And it's so fun. I love
Yeah.
the blue men and the people that work there are so sweet.
Yeah.
And I got to work Galantis' show a couple weekends ago. And I think that was a huge win for me because I listened to Galantis a lot when I was a teenager
hmm
and would think about like creative ways to make like a dance project or like a film project with their songs. And so like that was like if 13-year-old me could see me now
Yeah.
at a side stage at a Galantis show, like working and, being one of their techs that evening, like I think my 13-year-old self would have been like, who are you?
Yeah.
Never would have thought.
Yeah.
I don't think I even knew that was like a job at 13 years old, being a tech person.
Right.
Yeah.
You just,
So
yeah.
those are huge wins of mine. And
Yeah.
moving to New York, that was not like an art, well, I guess sort of an art related thing, but like a life
Yeah.
goal.
Yeah.
Moving to New York was a huge win for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, that's really cool too, and especially I'm sure there's definitely challenges of that of kind of being like it may feel like you correct me if I'm wrong, but like feeling like a little fish in a big pond almost kind of.
Oh,
But
every day.
but at the same time, I'm sure there's a lot of inspiration that comes from kind of being in that space too. And so I don't know where you were from prior to that, but how has that kind of shifted your brain creatively of being in somewhere like New York?
I'm from Northern Virginia, which is like 30 minutes outside of DC. So grew
Gotcha.
up in that sort of area, like traveling, bouncing around New York, or sorry, Virginia, Washington, Maryland. We call it the DMV.
Yeah.
For those that are from there, bounced around there. And I would say the music scene in DC is more underground,
Right.
especially amongst like younger, like Gen Z kiddos.
Mhm.
Um, and so I was really focusing on like meeting people, and it was hard because it's just so underground. I was really hard to find other women in music in that
Right.
area. I think maybe I just like wasn't looking for long enough.
Yeah.
Because when I started music, I was away from that area. I was in small town Radford, Virginia,
Mhm.
which is like southwest Virginia.
Right, yeah.
And the music scene there even smaller.
Mm.
Like there was this one bar there that was super amazing. It's called the Milk Parlor. I would go there a lot and talk to the people around there, and they had drag shows there sometimes too. It was like the
Mhm.
only place that I knew of around there that did drag shows that wasn't all the way in like Roanoke,
Mhm.
which was like the closest city
Mhm.
near Radford. But going back to your question, how is it different? I would say in New York, you will meet all kinds of people here.
Yeah.
Like I'm just, blown away every day.
Yeah.
You will see things and you'll just be like, yeah,
That happened.
yeah. You just, the way I can describe it is like you see all sides of humanity here. And
Yeah.
it's so unique in that way where like, I don't think I really got that in DC. DC's very like USA, like
Yeah, yeah.
historical, um, and all the museums and things. But, New York, you will just see every kind of human.
Yeah.
And I think that is really inspiring to me because I'll meet
Yeah.
an artist who is so different from me.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you're awesome. Because and I take away so much
Yeah.
from those people. So I think that's really important for artists to come across. Like, you need to encounter people that are just so different than you
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
make different stuff than you, and like
Yeah.
get to know them and their like shows and like their creative processes, because you will it will open your eyes a lot.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what I love about the city here is so many different kinds of people, and even in just the way people dress, like I always like notice like fashion on the streets, like fashion I don't really see like anywhere outside of New York.
Right.
um because you can be whoever you want here, and I don't think I can really say like that's not the case
Yeah.
around the country. Like, you
Yeah.
can't be whoever you want in
Yeah.
other places.
Yeah.
Out there are things that I would wear on the street here that I probably wouldn't wear in Northern Virginia,
Yeah,
because
for sure.
I'd get stares.
Yeah.
Definitely wouldn't wear in Radford, Virginia, because you would get many stares.
Yeah.
Or somebody might say something to you.
Yeah.
Um, but it's funny. I think New York is like unique in that aspect.
Yeah.
And there's definitely a shift, and it changes you as a person.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's so interesting too, because, thinking about the different demographics of how it does change, not just, music or the things you create, but you as a person
Hmm.
almost, and how it kind of opens your eyes up to it. Like you said, it's not just what you saw in the like small circle of where you were from. I think of where we live currently in North Carolina. It's like we say we're from Charlotte to people who are not from here, but it's like we're like
Hmm.
45 minutes away from Charlotte.
Yeah.
And it's like, musically, within a 20-mile radius, it's like if anybody is recording music professionally, it's like a handful of people, and it's all like you've got a lot of like rappers, you've got
Hmm.
country people who do country music, and you have like southern gospel quartets, and like that's it. Like
Heck
that's all.
yeah.
And so people like what I guess my style, I don't even fully know what my style is, but it's
Hmm.
definitely different, and it's weird because there's not many people in that same kind of type of thing. But I'm sure you go in New York, you walk down the street and you can find you can find somebody who does pop music. You can find a guy that does, that alternative music, like that.
Yeah, even that gospel stuff every single morning in Broadway Junction station. For those
Yeah.
who go through there,
Yeah.
there's somebody screaming or singing gospel stuff really loud.
Yep. Yep.
Um, you'll find that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like you said too, it's, finding artists that are even different than you, how much that can inspire you too. And so there's
Hmm.
so much that like in being around people that do hip hop music that are around this area, that when I first started producing, it was predominantly for people who did rap music. And it
Hmm.
definitely has influenced the production side of what I do. And then the like Southern gospel stuff, like I don't make Christian music, but like I am a Christian, but I don't make Christian
Hmm.
music. But like the vocal layering of Southern gospel, like the harmonies and stuff, that definitely influences some of the
Hmm.
like harmonies and stuff. And so it's interesting how like that weird fusion of stuff like creates this like really interesting style of stuff. And so I'm sure for you, that's that, you can have
Oh
that different
yeah.
inspiration all the time.
Yeah, I actually grew up in a religious community. I was a Christian, and I mean I still am a Christian. I would say I'm still spiritual.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I grew up like going to Christian school,
Hmm.
and that gospel influence, like I would
Hmm.
say definitely still comes in. And I think like even back then, like we sang a lot in church, and like I was like really into the singing
Yeah. Oh yeah.
in
Yeah.
church. I wanted to sing, and I think like some of my early singing roots come from singing in church and
Yeah.
in the choir,
Yeah.
and yeah, just wanting to like be very vocal and
Yeah.
um yeah, singing that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. It definitely plays a big influence on a lot of stuff too, for sure. And
Hmm.
so for you, one of the things I wanted to ask, especially on the production side of stuff, right, whenever you first started diving into that, was there a particular moment that kind of like clicked that you wanted to start producing?
Mhm.
Or was there somebody like a particular artist you listened to the production itself and were like, I wanna learn more about that, or kinda how did that come about too? Because I'm always interested, especially because a lot of times people who are artists who, whether or not they produce, they focus on the like lyric songwriting side and all that, which is still very unique and interesting to learn. But I'm always interested to learn about the production side of stuff for people too, because it is such
Mhm.
a like people. I don't think the general listener really knows how much work goes into even that side too.
Oh yeah. I think for me, when I was like, I want to learn how to do this, and I'm still learning. It's
Yeah,
quite an undertaking,
yeah,
learning how to produce and just like compose. That's like a
yeah,
whole undertaking too. Um, but I think I realized one day I was like, I have to learn how to do this myself because nobody else is going to do it for me
yeah,
unless like you have money
yeah, yeah,
to do it. So I was like, I'm going to start producing and I'll share it with people, get their feedback, see what they say. And I had this wonderful friend, his name's Daniel, who I showed him my earliest productions. They were like, just crap. He messaged me, he listened to them. He was like, "Oh my gosh, there's so much here to work with." And I look back, I was like, he had to have been, you're joking. Like I listened to those productions back earlier
Yeah,
or later in life, but I learned a lot from him, like watching him produce because he's a great musical ear, and he helped me out a lot, like learning tricks and platforms that can help you, like plugins that can help you.
yeah,
Learn a lot through him. And an artist, like I mentioned earlier, who always inspires me is John Bellion, because he makes videos on YouTube on the making of his songs.
mhm,
And so before I even knew how to produce, I would watch those and like kind of understand what he was saying. I think I'd understand it more now, watching them back. But I learned a lot from those, and I was like studying those for a long
yeah,
time,
yeah,
trying to figure out how he produces.
yeah,
And there's YouTube University,
mhm,
that
yep,
I'm always still learning from.
yep,
So
yeah,
I would
absolutely,
say that, yeah, my friend Daniel helps a lot, and John Bellion. Those are my
yeah,
two big
yeah.
ones.
Solid 2 choices right there. Yeah, yeah, and it's always it's this ever evolving, like, thing of you're always learning new stuff and all that
Mhm.
and even I use you said you use Logic as well. I use Logic, and there's always, like, new updates and new
Oh
tricks
yeah.
and stuff you can use with it. Because when I first started, I started on GarageBand, so then,
Oh,
like,
same.
it was an easy, like, transition over to Logic. It's just like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's GarageBand, but on crack. This is awesome."
Yeah.
But
Exactly. I went through the same thing.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, it's like you said, if, people that want to learn how to produce or want to even dive into that, literally, YouTube teaches you so much, so much stuff, and you can
Mhm.
look up literally anything, and somebody's done a tutorial on it, and so
Mhm.
there are so many times where I'm, experiencing like I'm hung up on, I don't know how to do this, that you YouTube it, and then you find it, and so it's definitely a unique side of things, but yeah, has there been a particular song of yours that you're, like, most proud of with the production side of things that you look back on, you're like, "Yeah, no like, I love the way that this turned out, the producing it and mixing it, everything like
Mm.
that."
There's a couple. For like a few different reasons. I think like when you work on tracks and you're like still learning, there's like a couple that are really pivotal moments
Mhm,
in your learning process. I would say my first track, which actually isn't like a track really associated with me as like an artist, but when I was
mhm,
in college, I decided for one of my assignments, which was to come up with our own group piece choreography.
mhm.
I was like, I'm going to make my own music for this piece. And I am going to record the dancers making a bunch of like noises. And
Yes.
I'm going to make the music out of that.
Yeah.
And that was a really ambitious task. that I gave myself. And I told my professors, and I think they thought I was crazy. And um, I had a couple moments like that with some of
Yeah.
my professors.
That's awesome.
But I had one rehearsal, I recorded them with my mic. Maybe it was this mic. It might have been because this was my first mic.
That's a
Um,
legendary microphone right
yeah,
there.
the Audio Technica, yeah. But I set up the recording in our studio. Terrible, terrible recording atmosphere thinking back. All reverb, just a
Yeah.
huge giant room with wooden floors.
Yep.
But I was like, I don't care. I recorded them making different noises like claps and snaps, and like I had a dancer that could beatbox. And so he beatboxed a little for me, and I put
That's
that in
awesome.
there. That production was so transformative to me as a producer because I had to really figure out how am I gonna like take all these like random sounds, like cut them into like samples essentially,
Yeah.
and make a beat out of this in a way that's constantly engaging
Yeah.
enough where I can create movement
Yep.
out of it. So that was really transformative. Um, Another really transformative song was Ladies First because that song, when I produced it, had very mixed reactions when I showed it to people.
Hmm.
And I was getting like a lot of feedback on like how to improve it. And there was like a one point where I felt like something was missing. I struggled a lot with the beat making for that song.
Hmm.
And I think that was transformative to me because it was just like, how am I gonna solve this?
Yeah.
Which comes up a lot in the production process. Like when you feel like something's missing and
Mm.
you can't figure out what it is, you really have to become like a detective a little and try a bunch of different things. And sometimes it sounds like even more like trash, or sometimes it works.
Yeah.
And that was like a huge transformative moment for me with that song. And finishing that track was like the biggest celebration ever, getting
Hmm.
that track done.
Yeah.
Um, so that was really transformative. But I'd say my favorite production I've ever done, I think would either be my song Substance or Feeling Better. Because those tracks, I feel like Feeling Better, that production just flowed so
Yeah.
easily. I produced that one day while I was on FaceTime with my boyfriend Tyler,
Hmm.
and I was so locked in. And he's like, and I was like, I have ideas. And I was producing it, and the lyrics came so easily for that song
Yeah.
too. And in Substance, I just love that production, especially in the bridge, or after the bridge when I sing the chorus um again. I love that production because it's such like classic bubblegum pop,
Yeah.
and the synths make me so happy,
Yep.
and there's like little sparkly notes in it, and I love that track.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's awesome. And I love that you acknowledge feeling better because that's my personal favorite one that you put out. And
Yay.
that one is on my I have a playlist for me and my daughter. She's about to turn 9 months. I think by
Oh,
the time this comes out, it'll be 9 months, but it's on that playlist of stuff. And so it made me nothing to you that I like the song, but my 9 month old daughter very much likes the song. So
oh my gosh, that means everything to me. I don't think anybody's ever said that that was like their favorite one, and it's my favorite one.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
so happy that you
There's
like
so much of the feel of it that's just it's like, which I mean I love, especially the newest CP. Like I love all of it, but especially that song,
Thank
that was a
you.
big like standout one the first time listening through it. And so it's cool to hear that, like, being drawn to that, especially like as a producer, that hearing that that was one of your favorite ones to work on too. So it's
Oh,
funny.
thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
thank you. That means everything to me.
Yeah.
So,
And so before, one of the last things that I really want to ask you too, because talking about the production side, I would hate to bypass the like lyric writing side, because a lot of times for songwriters that can
ooh.
be such a like, it can be the easiest thing ever and everything is just like that. And for some it's just like it's the worst part about writing
Hmm.
music. Like they can come up with melodies, they can come up with a vibe to it, they can come up with a lot of things, but the lyrics don't come as easy. So whenever you go into, writing that side of it, when it comes to the melodies, the lyrics, all that kind of stuff, what does your process kind of look like whenever you go into it?
Yeah. My process, I feel like, is a little bit different, depending on like how inspired I am. I mean,
Yeah.
because sometimes I will just immediately have an idea, it'll
Yeah.
flow so easily. Um, like I just had a song I wrote the other day where it flew out so easily, and I wrote an entire song, like a whole like 3-minute track in like 30 minutes.
Hmm.
And I'd say that's kind of rare. Like I
Yeah.
think that's like special when it happens and it's like awesome, but if you want to do songwriting like regularly, that's not going to happen
Yeah.
regularly. Um, this is my little studio corner. I like being in here in my little space and I write in here a lot. And I have like two whiteboards, one giant one and then like a smaller one. Sometimes like if I know I want to write about something specific, I'll just like word and brainstorm like a bunch of like things associated
Yeah. Yeah.
with it. Like I'm working on a Halloween track right now with a friend, and that's one thing we did. I have a whole list right here of just like Halloween words.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think on there Scooby Dooby Doo is one of them. So I'll do that sometimes. If I'm really struggling with a line, but I know what I want to say, I'll write down exactly like in my brain what I want to say, even if it doesn't fit like syllable wise,
Yeah. Yeah.
rhyming wise. I'll do that. And then you just figure it out, like
Yeah.
how to simplify it. Because once you know what you want to say, then you can go from there.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, I've also seen so many professional songwriters when they have a session where they're like, we're just going to make a song today. Don't know what we're going to write about. Don't
Yeah.
know what it's going to sound like. They put on a metronome and just start freestyling like incoherently.
Hmm. Yeah.
I think that's really helpful too. Like, and just recording it so that you have like all those ideas saved because you can,
Yeah.
I think it's like Legos, everything you can build off of. And so
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I I'm writing with a lot of people right now and I'm like anything you think of, write it down, like record it,
Hmm.
just put it out there somewhere because you can come back to it even if you like hate it in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um feel like this doesn't really sit with me. You can come back to it. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And workshop it. But you have to have those Legos first to build off
Hmm.
of,
Yeah.
regardless if they connect necessarily and look appealing, sound appealing in the current moment. But you'll get
Hmm.
there. You'll figure
Yeah.
it out.
Yeah.
A lot of this is problem solving and yeah, those sorts of skills. So that's
Yeah.
how my process really is. It just depends on the song.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, lots of like workshopping and figuring out ideas. And I have a notebook. It usually sits right there, but I have it in my bag because I took it with me to work the other day. But I write in there a lot. I think
Hmm.
like having your creative space, figuring out what you want to say in the best way possible will
Yeah.
help you a lot as a songwriter.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so, so good. And it's the side of things where there's not like a right or wrong way. It's different for each person, different styles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I've always talked about it's all because I'm typically like a beat almost all the time comes first, and then it's like a melody next, and then lyrics kind of come. I'll always talk about how like at how impressed but frustrated I am at there's so many people who will like write out every lyric and everything they want to say, and then everything comes after. Like, I don't know how you do it. My brain can, there's no, because then it's like I almost have to create the box and like
Mm-hmm.
the melody does this and then fit the words to it. Because I think if I have a lyric
Mm.
in mind, I'm gonna try and cram it into this, and it's not gonna work. But it's interesting, and it's cool to hear that from your perspective too, of the that side of things, and how just because you have an idea for something doesn't mean you'll immediately use it. I remember I sent you a demo not that however long ago it was, and one of the songs, the guitar part, I sat on for a year and a half. Like it was already
Mm-hmm.
recorded, it was there, and I didn't pick it up until I was like, oh, let me pull up an old session, and pulled it up and was like, bam, 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 knocked out all the rest of the stuff. And so
Yeah.
it's cool and it's interesting to like how not put together the process of songwriting is. It's very much just I love the illustration of Legos. It's just like I'll come back to that pile at some point in time, and then you eventually
Yeah.
do, and you put the stuff together. So that's really cool.
I'm still working on like always like being able to access that flow. Because when you do artistry as a job, regardless if it's acting, dancing, singing, producing, like your headspace, it has to be number one, and your headspace is going to change every
Yeah,
day.
yeah,
So figuring out like how do you access that has been something that I'm still learning. And because there's professionals like they do that thing where they can just like get into that flow and they know how to on the days when they're feeling off,
yeah,
because there are going to be days, your songwriting where like I want to songwrite, but I just have this like block.
yeah,
And so figuring out how to get into that flow, like what do you need to do? Do you need to write? Do you
yeah,
need to sit on the floor, like
yeah,
in
yeah,
silence? Do you need to listen to something else? Do you need to read something, like to help you get into that state? That is so crucial too.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's such a great point. And so, um, if for somebody too that's out there, I know a lot of times I like to close with this question. I think it just it comes right off of that like so perfectly. For somebody that is listening or watching this right now that is thinking about diving into music, producing, dancing, whatever it may have been that we talked about, or they are already kind of in that space, they want to take it kind of to the next level. Just
Hmm.
based out of your experience, what's some advice that you would give to those people kind of looking to take their next step in wherever they are within the creative processes?
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people say the same advice, like, know yourself, like
Mhm.
that sort of thing. Um, I feel like my way that I've always led with my creative projects, if you have an idea, pursue it like as best as you can. Like I had an idea like where I was like, I want to learn stage fighting. I signed up for a stage fighting class.
That's dope.
And like those sorts of things. I used to have a journal where every idea I had, I wrote it down.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's like you can do it right now. Like I think one of my ideas, I was like, I want to build a theater one day. Is that gonna happen? I don't know. Uh, but
But the idea's
if you
there.
yeah, if you have ideas and you're like, I want to write a song about this, write it down. I have a list of just like one-off lyric ideas
Mhm.
and like even like titles for songs. I'm like, this would be a cool title.
Yeah, yeah,
Put it down. Like every idea you have, like that you just write it down regardless. Don't judge if it's bad or
yeah,
good or if it'll be successful or not, because you have no idea.
yep,
Like you have no idea what's going to be successful or not.
yeah,
Well, actually you may have some idea, but I would just say like don't give yourself some credit. Like don't like um shoot down every idea you have. um Especially when you're in the beginning stages of creating, you just gotta
yeah,
start, get some stuff on the page and work from there.
yeah,
Because I think the people who do start are further along than the people who have just thought about it and then didn't, place any
yeah,
action towards
yeah,
it. You're always going to be further ahead if you actually do something and you
yep,
start. And doesn't matter if it's bad or good. Other people can be the judge of that, but you just really have to give yourself some credit and be like, yes, what I create is good and what I do is good and there's a
yeah,
purpose for it. There's a reason I had this idea. unless your idea hurts someone. Don't do something that hurts someone. So
It's a good disclaimer.
don't hurt people and don't hurt yourself. So that'll be my disclaimer.
There you go.
Yeah. But
Gonna
that's my
have to send out an insurance paper that everybody has to sign there while listening
yes,
to that.
disclaimer, don't hurt yourself and don't hurt others. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a good note. That's a good note to end on. But yeah, Kim, as we close off, we could talk for forever about a bunch of different stuff.
Yeah.
But as we get ready to wrap up, I just want to say, like, first and foremost, thank you for letting me pick your brain for a little bit. And, even I don't know how beneficial this is going to be to the listener, whoever's viewing, but I took away a lot from this conversation. So I appreciate you jumping on and chatting for a little bit.
No, this was so fun. I learned so much about you, and honestly, things were coming out of my mouth, and I was like, I didn't even realize that I was thinking that. So
That's awesome.
No, this was so fun. I really could talk to you forever. You're great. You're such an amazing person.
Yeah. I'll add musical therapist to my resume. That's what we'll do.
Yes. Do you know who Zach Sang is?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, you are like the next Zach Sang. Like, you're awesome.
Oh, I take that as a massive compliment. I'll take that. I appreciate that. But yeah, and so for anybody that is watching or listening that may not be connected to you, what's kind of some of the best ways they can stay connected to you and keeping up with anything you have coming up?
Yeah, I am on Instagram, and I have a broadcast channel that people can jump into and keep up with me and updates on my work and Instagram. I also have TikTok. I'm not posting on there as much. I would like to post more, but the fate of TikTok is a little up in the air.
Yeah.
I'm on there. What else am I on? I have like a whole list of, social media. YouTube. I love YouTube. I post on there a lot, and I'm gonna be posting on there soon because I just created this cover of Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter. So that's going up really soon.
Yeah. You've been teasing it a long time, so that'll be a good one.
Yes. It's oh my goodness. You'll understand why it took me so long to make when you see it. I'm on there, and I'm on Threads too, and Facebook. So you can find me on all those things. It's just at Kim Bythewood, spelled BYTHEWOOD. And yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much for being on once again. I appreciate it a ton. And I'm excited
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Anytime. And so, yeah, I'm glad we got to actually like talk and meet beyond just Instagram and all that kind of stuff. And that's another fun little thing that we'll close out on. I'm one of the weird people that actually goes on and looks at hashtags and to try and connect with people. And so if you're out there and you want to meet like cool people who are in your thing or in your kind of field of work, look up hashtags and stuff.
Hashtags still are useful. I still believe in them.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're out there and you want to support your friends and stuff, engage with them on social media, because that's what our outlet is right now. So to be doing that. So anyway, that's a whole tangent. We ain't going to go on a whole nother side thing. But yeah, it's thank you so much for being on. And yeah, so excited for what you have coming up, and excited to continue to connect with you and all this stuff in the future. So
yay, I'm so excited for you too. You've got so much stuff going on, so I'm excited for you as well.
I appreciate that. And man, I speak, I'm sure, for the both of us, anybody who is out there listening or watching the podcast, we definitely appreciate you coming and hanging out. Be sure to connect with Kim and everything she has going on, as well as if you want to stay connected with anything we have going on here at Creative Corner Co. You can connect with us through social media. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel, all the technological stuff and things. You can stay connected to us there. And we look forward to seeing you again in the next video.